part of the mimer, so I will try to take it slow to help, get this in a more understood fashion. So we are holding on page 11 Ois Ches. Up till now, we were talking about how there is the Maila of the Avodah before the time of the Geula. Soif Yisrael lasis tivticha Torah, the Torah promised that Yidden will eventually do tshuva, which means that the level of tshuva that Yidden have at the end of the time of Golus is not something that they are accomplishing based on their avodah. Not like the avodah of the Sholosh Regalim, that over there, during the Sholosh Regalim, there was the level of biti. Even that level of biti was a certain type of something that has to do with Oila Regel, was the Gilu in the times of the Beis HaMikdash. There's Achoisi, there's Imi, the tshuva of Tishrei. The tshuva of Tishrei has to do with the Seder V'Hadraga of the person. It's still the avoid of the Mata, and because it's the avoid of the Mata, since it has to do with the person's own avoida, because of that, it is still limited in what it can bring down from above. The Geula Hasidah will come as a result of Ma'aseinu, of Yisenu, B'meshach Zman HaGolus, especially during the darkness before the coming of Mashiach at the end of the Golus. That the tshuva that we're going to do is because Hivticha Torah, because it's coming from above, because the Torah promised and said that we will eventually do tshuva. So therefore, B'Nisan Nigalu. Even though on the one hand we are saying, like Rabbi Eliezer said, that it's a result of our tshuva, but the tshuva is a type of tshuva that we are in a form of bas, we are makabel, just like in the level of Nisan, where we are a bas. It is, and that's why B'Nisan Nigalu, B'Nisan Asidin Lehigoil, even though it's coming through tshuva, but it's a tshuva that is coming from above. In addition to that, we explained that this is the connection. How can there be already that the machshava pnimis of the brias ha'olam came on Nisan? Tishrei is avoida malmata l'maylam, and the avoida of the geula, the avoida of Nisan, the avoida having to do with brias ha'olam is the kavana pnimis is in Nisan. If Nisan is about not our avoida, how is it based on the idea of Tishrei, meaning that Hashem thought in Nisan about the creation of the world? The creation of the world has to do with Balmata Lamaila and limitations and nature, whereas Nisan is beyond nature. So we explained that in the kavan, in the intention of the creation of the world, the idea of the tshuva that we are aiming for, the purpose of the creation, the purpose of the limitation of the world is that eventually, especially through the tshuva at the end of the time of Golus, through Ma'aseinu V'Yisenu B'meshach Zman HaGolus, we should have that revelation that in the pnimius of the Gvul of Tishrei, in the inner level of Tishrei, it becomes revealed the infinite aspect of Nisan. And that's why that was the machshava. That's why when Hashem created the world, though he actually created the world in Tishrei as we followed the view of Rabbi Eliezer, but we said even Rabbi Yeshua agrees, he's talking about the Kavana Pnimis, because the Kavana Pnimis, the inner intention is that the world should be permeated, the Gvul of the world of Tishrei should be permeated with the Bli Gvul of Nis. At the beginning of the Maimer, we mentioned that when Torah says a havamina, Torah gives us a possible thing how something should have been. That's also Torah, and that's also emes. It's part of Torah, Torah's emes, Torah of truth. So when Rabbi Yitzchak says that the Torah should have begun from Achodesh Azalochem, that means it's a truism, it's a correct idea. And not only that, but it is beginning from Achodesh Azalochem. Based on what we just now explained, that Nisan was the Kavanah that's supposed to be revealed in Tishrei, that statement of Rabbi Yitzchak will be understood. So let's see again, page 11, Tesvav Eisches, line 17. This is what Rabbi Yitzchak said at the beginning. Rashi brings us down the beginning of Chumash. The Torah should have begun only from Achodesh Azalochem. And the Inyan Zehu Gama Liba de Emes Keniskan Leil B'Tchias Hamayim. The idea that Torah should have begun with Achodesh Azalochem, with the mitzvahs, with Torah, with Nisan, is a true thing. The fact that Torah begins with Bereshis, though what is the idea of Torah? Torah is about drawing down and a revelation of the infinite light of Hashem that's higher than any connection with the world. So therefore, why are you talking to me about the creation of the world, which is limited and nature and has to do with the mata and has to do with the below? The Torah, which is about beyond the world, should have begun with the beyond the world aspect of Torah, with Achodesh Azalochem. The reason is, line 23, Huki HaKavanah the Torah, the purpose, the intention of Torah is to draw down the infinite light of Hashem in the boundaries of the world. This is also that it's the Rebbe in other places explains that that's the idea of why did the Torah relate Bereshis bara, because he wants to give them the land of the nations. Meaning, a different way of putting it is, making the world into a place of spirituality. In other words, bringing the bli gvul into the gvul of the world. So he says in line 25, therefore the Torah also relates the story of the creation, the very fact that Torah itself relates it enables us to draw down the infinite aspect of Torah also into the world and to transform and make from the world a home for the Eibishter. Yet, even though that is the purpose, like we said, the Kavanah is in Achodesh Azalochem, the Torah wasn't written that way. The Torah was written from Bereshis. So that the revelation of the infinite level of Torah should be in the world the way it is in existence. Outside of Torah, in other words, there's the way the world exists within the realms of Torah, that Torah tells you do this and do that and do the other thing. So that's already Torah, the way it's within the paradigm of the world. We need a world to exist first as a separate entity, then after the world exists as a separate entity, bring Torah into the world. Just like Hashem created the Yesh, and now after he creates the Yesh, you bring the Elokus in the Yesh. He didn't want a world that's subsumed with Elokus. Therefore, he says in line 30, L'chein Pasach beBereishis, the Torah began with Bereishis. Sha'agod the Maisa Bereishis, Valderach Zah Parshis Shalachar Zeh Lifnei Parshas HaChodesh, the relating of the story of the creation and so on. The Parshas following Bereishis is before Parshas HaChodesh, which is mitzvah Rishonos shenitztava by Yisrael. It's the first mitzvah that Yidden were commanded. Why was all that necessary? Such a long story of the world and everything going on. Bichdei, top of page Tazayin, bichdei shaydei limud haTorah v'kiyum mitzvahs, so that through the study of Torah and fulfillment of mitzvahs, yiyeh gilui habli gvul the Torah gam b'chelik da'olam k'may shahayu lifnei akimat Torah mitzvahs. The infinite part of Torah should become revealed in that part of Torah the way it was prior to the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs. So now that we know that that was the purpose of Bereshis, not for its own sake, to tell us about the world, but to enable that there should be a world that's separate, so you should bring Elikus in it, so you should bring Torah in it. So he says in line 4, V'kivin d'zeh shepascha Bereshis, V'b'chdei shegilui habli gvul the Torah mitzvahs. HaChodsh hazeh lachem yeh gam be'inyan de Bereshis, k'may shu lifnei parts HaChodsh. That's why he started with Bereshis, so that the revelation of the infinite power of Torah mitzvahs, that is, starts with HaChodsh hazeh lachem, will also permeate the Bereshis the way it is prior to parts HaChodsh. Nimtza comes out. In the innermost aspects of everything, the beginning is with what it says, that's the real beginning. Because kiapnimis, meaning the intention, the purpose, the bereshis, that is the inner part, that's the inner purpose. Why are we doing bereshis? To be able to have HaChodsh HaZalachem come into Bereshis. This is step 1. Now he's going to take it even more layered. Ois test line 11. V'hini yadu it's known, the Brias ha'olam b'chafei be'elul ha'isub b'chinas koi. The creation of the world on the 25th of El, the 25 is the numerical equivalent, the same letters like the word koi. Like this. And the day of the creation of Adam Rishon, which is Echad B'Tishrei, Nasa Gilui Elikus Ba'olam, becomes the revelation of the world B'chinas Zeh, in a level of Zeh. Chassidus explains that there's the difference between all the other Nevi'im, where Nisnabu B'Koi, they said their Nevuah with like this, says Hashem, because their appreciation of Hashem was an aspaklaria sheina meira, a non-luminous lens, and therefore it was only like, they couldn't point at it directly, there wasn't an open revelation. That's similar to the godliness that was manifest at the beginning of creation, Chaf Hei El. But on the day of Rosh Hashanah, the day of the creation of Adam Rishon, it says, Zeh hayom tchilas masecha. This is the day. That's similar to the nevuah of Moshe Rabbeinu. But the Rebbe right away forewarns. It's only recalling and echoing that, but it's not exactly like what Moshe Rabbeinu had. Ella shagilu shahayai de Adam Rishon bein aroich lagilu de Matan Torah. The revelation that took place by Adam Rishon, the Zeh of Adam Rishon, the Zeh Hayom Tchilas Masecha, is incomparable. Matan Torah is so much higher, the revelation. So now, instead of, we had before just 2 levels, we had the Bereshis level, the creation of the world. And we had a Chodesh HaZalachem, Nisan, Matan Torah, out of this world. Now he's introducing that there is 3 levels. There is Koi, the beginning of creation before Adam. There is Zeh, when there is Adam Rishon. And then there is Nisan, Matan Torah, etc., higher than all of that. This he's going to explain in connection with the different levels of tshuva that we spoke about before. We spoke about before, there is the tshuva of just Tishrei, that the person does have leaping out of his level, but it's still in a certain order, whereas the tshuva that is before the coming of Mashiach is something that's completely beyond the avoid of the person and therefore reaches Hashem's essence. So he's going to associate that with these different levels. So he says in line 16, Valpizi yesh loimar, according to this we could say, the idea that this month is for you is the level, the inner level of Bereshis Bara, like we were saying up till now. It's higher than the level that we spoke about, that the tshuva of a person is without boundary, without limitations, that breaks out of the barriers. So he says, why is that so? This joining of the infinite and the finite through the fact that the tshuva of the person is beyond limitations, that's the revelation of the infinite power of Torah mitzvahs in the world, the way the world is in a level of zeh. In other words, it's already an elevated level of the world. It's already a higher level of the world because the tshuva of the person. And because it's the tshuva of the person, it still has to do with this level of not fully bridging the gap between two extremes. The fact that HaChodesh Zalachem is the inner level of Bereshis Bara, which Bereshis Bara took place not on the time of Adam Rishon, but on Chaf Hei Elul, the 25th of Elul, before there was Adam, when it was still Kai. So hu gilu yabligvol the Torah mitzvahs ba'olam shenivra b'chafei be'el k'meshu b'dargas Kai. It is the revelation of the infinite part of Torah mitzvahs in the world that was created on the 25th of Elul, the way it's in the level of Kai. By the way, this Maimer was said on Chaf Hei Adar. So the Rebbe brings in the footnotes, he says, since we know that Nisan is the Machshava Pnimius, so the Machshava Pnimius of the level of the Kai of the world, of Chaf Hei Elul, comes from Chaf Hei Adar. He says that in footnote 63. But anyway, that's a side point. So the Rebbe goes on and says, V'yesh loimar. He says this. So there's the tshuva that joins Torah mitzvahs with the world, but with the world where it's a level of zeh that has to do with the person. The level of the tshuva that is the Soif Yisrael Lasis tshuva, the haftacha of the Torah. That haftacha of the Torah to do tshuva, that higher level of tshuva, not the level of the ordinary level of tshuva of Tishrei, but that higher level of tshuva that comes from above, that's only the way it's coming into the level of Zed, the level of when Adam Rishon was created. But there's a higher level in the Kavanah, which is to come down in Koi, and the Rebbe says, top of the next page, V'yesh loimar, the Gilui Zeh yeh be'ikir ba'agula shala achrei hatshuva the soif zman hagolas. This revelation will take place in the redemption after the tshuva of the end of the time of Golos. Because we said before that the person being elevated and doing tshuva in such a way that is joining the gvul and the bli gvul is the tshuva that the yid does at the end of Golos, that he just before, at the cusp of the Geula, Soif Yisrael, that Soif Ifticha Torah, Soif Yisrael Yalas tshuva, like the Rambam says, that eventually the Yidden will do tshuva. But that is not yet the level, the ultimate level of HaChodesh HaZelachem. That ultimate level of Chodesh HaZelachem will be in the Geula after that tshuva. But again, it's a layer by layer, a step-by-step process. He says in line 2, Daidei Gilui HaBli Gvul Ba'olam, Kimoishu B'dargas Zeh, Ha'odam through the revelation of the infinite light in the world. The way it is in the level of Zeh, which means the level that there's already a person over there, the way it is on Rosh Hashanah, the way we say Zeh Yom Tchilas Masecham. That is the tshuva at the end of the time of Golus, that there's the joining of the infinite and the finite. Hashem is the one that is awakening and inspiring the person to make the choice to do tshuva. Following that level, the level of the Bligvul coming into the level of Zeh, then immediately will become the revelation of the infinite of Hashem, also in the world, beyond Adam, beyond the person, because the entire world is dependent upon a person, he says in the footnote, but still in all, that's the next stage. Beyond the Bligvul and the infinite that will come down to the person, which is representing the level of Zeh, it will come down to the level of Koi. And then, when it comes down to the level of Koi, Vaideze Tushlam HaKavana, the Dir B'Tachtoinim B'Tachton Shein Tachton L'Mata Menu. Through that will be fulfilled the purpose that there will be a home down here below, in the ultimate thing that's low, that there's nothing beneath it. Also, this is included in what Rabbi Yeshua says, that just like Yitzias Mitzrayim was in Nisan, so too when Mashiach comes will be redeemed in Nisan. The Asidin Goel, that we are in the future going to be redeemed, it's referring to the redemption that follows that higher level of tshuva that we introduced, the tshuva that comes from Hashem, the joining of the infinite and the finite. Also the revelation of the world that will be by the redemption. Through the performance of tshuva that will precede it, like we said before, it's layer after layer. Then will come about the level of Nisan, meaning the infinite light of Hashem that's completely beyond any connection with the worlds. That will be revealed in the world, which prior to that was not able to be revealed. And this revelation will be in such a way that it's the inner part of the world itself. Just like the Tosfos explained in the Machlokes, just like the Tosfos explains that the Nisan, the inner purpose of the creation, or the Machshav on the creation, which means the inner purpose, was in Nisan. So that means, simply put, Bereshis bara Elokim is the creation of the world. The inner purpose of the world is in Nisan, meaning the inner person of the world, the inner purpose of that Bereshis bara, before even there's Adam. There is no level of tshuva of Adam. We're beyond that. We're going into the lowest of the low. We're talking about the world which is lower than the person will have in it manifest the revelation that's higher than the Seder Ishtalshlus. The Gula Mitzvah Shleimah, the Mashiach Tzidkenu, in the true and complete redemption through Mashiach.